The big bad evil gays are gonna get you. I'm Courtney.
And I'm Sean.
And this is the GM's Toolbox. Oh, why hello there. And welcome back to yet another episode of a GM's Toolbox. I'm Courtney Shize.
And I'm Sean. They, them.
Nice.
Worked.
And we're going to chat about BBEGs, not big bad evil gays, even though that can totally be a thing if you want it in your world. But technically, Sean, it's big bad evil guys.
Big bad evil guys, yeah. they're real bad.
Real bad.
Real evil.
Real bad guys.
It's bad guys.
Yeah, talk about the big bad evil guy in your world, what the hell it even means, and how you pick them, how they manifest, all that bullshit.
Strong start. I like it. But yeah, no, we're gonna talk about the villains, the nasties, the puppet masters, the string pullers, I don't know, whatever you want to call them, the big bad evil dudes.
Yeah. BBED.
I think I've seen a porn like that.
Okay. What's the definition of big bad evil guy? BBEG.
Well, if you're defining the acronym, it is big for B, bad for second B, evil for and guy, girl, or gay, depending on which direction you're going for G. No, but in most campaigns that involve a BBEG, the big bad is the person who's behind the scenes, who's setting everything up. Whether or not they're doing so, obviously, like you
just described the dungeon master.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, there you go. This has been a great episode, everyone. Thank you very much. We're 3 minutes in, and we've solved the mystery. Yeah, I mean, it is the dungeon master. Yeah. Sometimes your big bad can be acting out in the open, though. Like, everyone knows Strahd. Yeah. Everyone in Ravenloft knows Strahd. Everyone in Barovia knows Strahd. Yeah. Like, he's also the big bad. So that's why it's the big bad, because it's just the big bad because it's not just another mook. It's not just someone who's there. This is someone who has plans in motion.
Mm-hmm. Plans in motion that, I mean, in most written and all, right? And like all modules and stuff, they have some sort of, in all campaign modules, they have some sort of big bad, some climactic thing that's going to happen at the end. And I've also heard people say that the BBEG is a big bad end game. And there's a couple of other times too, but I forget what the other people have said. But most of the time, you're going to encounter the BBEG at the end. Like, this is the climactic.
The final boss.
This is the final boss. This is the thing that you've been following the breadcrumbs on the entire campaign, and now you're gonna. And there are times when you might meet the thing. I have a feeling that the angel that we're dealing with in the quiet season is the big bad, but who knows?
Who can say?
But yeah, like climactic, big, evil, really powerful. I was gonna say ugly, but sometimes they're not ugly.
Yeah. So that's what they are. How do they arise, Cam? How do your big bad evil gays arise?
Well, with a cup of coffee normally. But like when I'm planning a campaign, I don't tend to, but they come from my players' backstories.
There you go.
That's where my BBEGs tend to come from, because I want to tie them in super hard and make their motivations very clear. It's the easiest way, in my opinion, to like figure out a big bad. I do love the approach of there is evil things happening around you that aren't necessarily attached to anyone's character, but you start to see their effect, and therefore you then make it your problem. That's some cool writing that I've never done, but I love the idea of it. I've seen some or like read or seen some stuff about that, like where, you know, there are things that are happening around you. You can choose to ignore it, but they're evil, and maybe you can stop it because you're a powerful adventurer. Huh? Then it's like just enticing enough for a character to be like, oh, fuck yeah, actually, I do want to kill that thing because it's doing evil stuff. Let's do it. How about you? How do big bags come around your world?
Oh, so many different ways for me. Yeah, many different ways. I often have multiple big bads in any given situation. A lot of times I'll come up with a theme, and the big bad will arise from that theme. The Quiet Season theme is kind of accidentally climate change. Well, not super accidentally, but that's the fuckery that I'm fuckering with. And no, I will not tell you who the big bad is, or if there is a big bad, but I do like that angel quite a bit. It's a great angel. Make an angel a bad guy, everybody. It's fun.
It's cool.
I also like subverting my BBEGs. So in an older campaign, the party became members of a group that's kind of like the Harpers, sort of, who were fighting against, this group was fighting against this lich necromancer from the west, far to the west. But it turned out that the evil necromancer who was evil, was certainly doing some fuckery, became evil because the dragon who had become a Draco Lich, who ran the group that the party were members of, had foreseen the evil that he would do, and so, you know, roasted his entire kingdom. So the necromancer became evil because the dragon had seen that he would become evil and killed his family in an attempt to kill him, to prevent him from becoming evil. And then the dragon needed to stay around to keep fighting him. So it's just this giant battle between the two of them, and neither of them are good.
That's cool though.
And you know, that's just another way that I've built up a big bad. That was a fun campaign.
Yeah. I think that, was James a part of that one? Yeah. That sounded familiar, and I realized now that I think James told me about that one. There's also a different campaign that I read about where the big bad came from an event. So like it manifested from an event, and then like a part of its backstory. And one of the big events was when it walked into this building and then killed off a bunch of kids. Oh, yeah, nice. Do you want to stat Darth Vader? Nice. Very smooth. Very smooth. Smooth like those flayed youngling cases. Yeah, let's stat Darth Vader. Stat dat. Stat that. Doobity bop, ba choo bop bow. So yeah, as we built this episode right before we started recording because we're trying to avoid a different episode idea that we don't want to do. So as we were chatting, I Googled best villains. That's it. And we're going to the list. We're talking about some villains. We both agreed that Kylo Ren is not one of the best villains, even though on this list he was there. But then also on the list was Darth Vader. And I'm like, you know what? Let's stat some Darth Vader, because who doesn't love Darth Vader? I don't know. Where the hell do we start with Darth Vader? Can we stat his mask? His magical item mask? Sure. I guess his whole suit is... It's holding him together. It's the only thing. It's a walking iron lung. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. Yeah, because fucked up and or missing limbs and, you know, that whole catching on fire thing. Yeah, I guess that hurts. A little bit. Yeah. Probably. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I've only ever burned small pieces of myself. What? But when you do, it fucking hurts. And I guess the whole body thing, and basically... I would probably hurt a lot. Would hurt a lot. And so... Yeah. I'd be pretty mad too. I'd be mad too. You know, especially when you forget about the whole high ground, low ground thing in the whole process, right? That sucks. Yeah, because you were taught that, and then you forgot that during the time. Dick move, Kenobi. Dick move. Anyways, so the suit and the mask. Yep.
magic items, if we're doing fantasy, necromantic and abjuration magic.
And it's not some sort of phylactery. It's like an iron lung. Mechanically, let's figure out what that means. Like, what is so like? This isn't like a kill switch. It's not like if you were able to. There's like a little button, like, or a little like latch on this thing that you can like. Oh, I see a latch as a player. I'm gonna go whoop, and then like it like falls off like a a tracksuit. But mechanically, Darth Vader needs this suit in order to live, right? So what does that mean in D&D world? Besides saying, I need this suit to live, right? Is there something that we can attach to it then to stat it in a way of like, to make it D&D?
To make it D&D? I would say that mechanically speaking, once a certain amount of damage has been done to it, that your boy becomes vulnerable to damage, because then he has to spend so much of his internal stuff to keep himself alive. A
suit as Vader is more half warforged, half humanoid.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much.
Right?
Yeah,
because like there's no taking it off. That's it. Like,
not outside of his fancy little chamber.
Yeah, right. Because like that's the whole thing. It's like that you like lay in the chamber and then like, but wait, why? Do you know the answer to that? Why does he have to take it off? Like, just like let his blob rest.
He doesn't have to take it off. He wants to take it off.
That's what she said.
And when he's sitting in that, when he's in that chamber, he's practicing. He's trying to use the Force to keep himself. He's trying to use the dark side to keep himself going without the need for the mask. But he keeps. I've read the novelizations of the.
I'm like, where? I have not.
Wait, I've read the novelizations and a lot of comic books and a lot of shit that is no longer canon and is now legends. I'm a capital N nerd.
Nerd.
Someday I'll show you my collection of Star Trek books. Anyway, the whole idea and point is that it's not actually terribly comfortable to wear this suit.
Totes.
And yes, he has become just as much machine, if not more machine than man, but it's not super comfortable. So he sits in that little chamber so that he can take it off and practices being evil so that the dark side of the Force can sustain him.
Cool.
But then he has these things, these flashes of being not evil. Because redemption arcs and whatnot.
Yeah.
Boring.
Boring. Okay, cool. So my bro's got a cool lightsaber. It can slice and dice like slice and dike. That's what I just said. Slice and dike. Sounds like Courtney.
God, is that a band name? Is that an album title? I can't.
Is it a type of queer?
Yes.
You know? Yes to all of the above. I mean, slice and dike. It also is like a, like some sort of kitchen appliance.
It's a chef's knife and a sword lesbian at the same
and
time.
Vibrator.
So he's got his slice and dike.
Slice and dike, which we don't have to stat because I feel like that's you can look up D&D lightsaber and you can find something that's that. But like, what are some special? Okay, yeah, let's stat the Force. Let's stat the choke hold. I think that Darth Vader. I don't know what CR we're putting this at, but having him like not as a reaction, but maybe as either an extra attack. It's like, or with the attack action, he has multiple attacks, and one of them being a chokehold of some kind. He doesn't. Does he have to concentrate on that? Because it's the Force, right? So I'm assuming, right? So you've got the lightsaber, which you can probably with the set, you can be like has 3 attacks, 2 attacks with lightsaber, and then 1 chokehold. Can Darth Vader while he's like slicing and dicing, restrain somebody without having to concentrate on restraining that person with the force.
I think that the chokehold, I think the force choke is concentration, because he does, as we keep doing for all of our listeners who are not watching this because it is a podcast, we keep doing the dumb finger thing at each other whenever we talk about choking, because it's what he does. But he does, he has it has a somatic component, you know, and he holds that somatic component the entire time that he's using that spell. Guess what, kids? The Force is just fucking magic, because Star Wars is a fantasy film set in space.
In space.
It is just swords and sorcery in space.
All right, yeah, so then that's concentration. Would then that act like some sort of spell then in D&D?
Yeah, I think so. I think that, but I also think that, you know, he has to hold concentration on it, but he can keep bapping away with his, you know, lightsaber.
Mm-hmm. Cool. But 3 attacks though is pretty good, right?
Yeah, I think that's great. 3 attacks, two swords and a force. 2 swords and a force.
2 swords, 1 force, and then what other stuff does this?
Well, I think he's got other. So the force choke is like the Darth Vader thing, but also shield as a reaction, because he can just like block, you know, laser beams blasts. He probably can just block laser beams, honestly. Just be like, you know what? No, this laser beam, I do not like this laser beam. Let's
stat a creature that just goes, no, and like a force shield comes up. I don't like that.
Neo at the end of the first Matrix movie, when they unload all the bullets, no. But so, you know, shield reaction.
That's cool.
I guess like as many times as he wants.
Yeah, I think that this is a crazy CR creature. We're creating, it's, I mean, we're setting a big bad. So like, yeah, as many times as once. I think that also just like the like telekinesis, picking up and throwing someone with the force. Yeah, that's totally a thing.
Yeah. All sorts of telekinesis, force push, force pull, force jump.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's probably honestly
innate magical powers, I guess, is what this is called.
Yeah, that's
innate spellcasting ability.
Innate spellcasting. What's what tied to what ability do you think?
Ooh,
is it charisma?
That's where I would
wisdom.
Wisdom. I think it's wisdom, because I was going to say intelligence, but no, hell no. I think that it would be a tie between charisma and wisdom for me. And knowing Darth Vader, just knowing Anakin, I don't think very charismatic. Well, but again, but very good at the Force.
Yeah, charisma doesn't.
I know charisma doesn't necessarily mean.
Charisma doesn't necessarily. Yeah, it doesn't necessarily mean you're like the good, shiny, happy person that everyone likes. Like there are other things that can be charisma. Yeah, no, it's interesting. It's an interesting thought experiment as to what the spellcasting focus or ability rather for the Force would be. Because
it feels like wisdom, yeah.
Yeah, I think I think wisdom is good.
Because like, or maybe it switches. Like when you're.
I mean, light side Force, defo wisdom. Dark side Force feels like charisma, but could also be wisdom.
I love the idea of it switching. Like if you were to think about like mechanically, like if you're building out a Star Wars based campaign and have to create the stats for dark and light. And then if you make that switch throughout the process, like how Darth Vader did, where he was light.
Spoilers.
Spoilers. Oh no. Ruining the movies. Yeah, so like, you know, like how he was. So like I feel like he was using the charismatic stat and then switched, or using wisdom and then switched over to charisma. I love that.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. With Palpatine tricked him into, like, drew him into the dark side because that motherfucker was charismatic. So you know, yeah, Anakin was a cardboard cutout, but Sheev is a motherfucker.
Yeah, I love that. Does the suit? I guess healing abilities, because doesn't the suit it can like repair itself, right? Or no? Am I imagining things?
I don't think so.
I think I'm imagining that Luke fixing his arm, maybe.
Once he gets his hand cut off.
Yeah. Spoilers. Is there anything else you want to fucking do with Darth Vader?
I think resistant to non-magical damage from piercing, bludgeoning, slashing, etc.
Yeah.
I think for physical damage, magical or not, there's a damage threshold because of the suit.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's two separate HP pools, and then once the suit is depleted, that's when Vader actually starts to take damage.
That's cool. Yeah, I like that.
Something like that.
Yeah.
With charisma, dark side, innate spell casting, bunch of spells, shield, jump, stat the sword probably when I get around to it, but and yeah, no, I think that's pretty good.
The great thing about, like Star Wars in general and also like other fantasy stuff is that you can glean inspiration from and literally just yoink that kind of shit from anywhere. Not just from not even just like Star Wars. Like clearly, yeah, Darth Vader is an evil character in Star Wars. Spoilers. Yeah, but the great thing about literally any movie is that you can make something a big bad. And I recently read, as I was trying to find a What the Fuck Does the Internet Want Reddit post, I saw somebody trying to figure out what their BBEG was going to be. And they were saying, well, I found the stats for a cranium rat. And I'm like, oh, I mean, it's like a smooth. I guess you could like beef it up and make it into something evil. And then they said, like, they took over the body of like a great wizard, and then together they, practiced over time and then became this evil thing. At the end of it, they said, like Ratatouille. And the first comment was, once you mention Ratatouille, all seriousness evaporates. And I'm just like the idea of it was like, oh, that's fucking cool. And that makes sense. But then once they were like Ratatouille, I was like, what the fuck?
I need this now.
Right? Now it's like, okay,
I need
right. Solid idea.
To run a campaign where the bad guy is the fucking rat from Ratatouille.
Yeah. Not the body, right? Like the whole, this is a great idea, because now you're thinking about it. The evil character, the BBEG is not the body that this cranium rat has taken over, but it's the cranium rat that has, and I'm like, this is, we're doing a podcast, so you cannot see me do these things, but Patreon can. I'm like doing the motion of holding the hair on top of the head.
Yeah.
And so I love the storyline of this rat has convinced this person, this humanoid, whatever, this creature to do all of the things it wants to do. And what's that storyline? What's the dialogue of all that? How did this cranium rat convince this person to do these things, all of these evil things, and the person's okay with it? Because BBEGs, right? That, like we said before, they have evil things in motion. They have plans in motion. And so by the time you get to the BBEG, you are aware of its plans, at least some of them, and you're planning on killing this thing. But there's this whole storyline, right, of maybe the host is not so evil, but the cranium rat is, and how are the players going to deal with that? That sounds like fun. I think it's a brilliant idea.
Fun. That sounds like so much fun.
I know.
The wheels, they are spinning. I got chills.
They're multiplying?
They're multiplying. No, but that's, the most, for me, the reason I do still use, I don't know that, I mean, I use BBEGs, but I use them very differently these days than I did, mostly because I don't run linear campaigns, and I don't run linear campaigns because that's a lot of work.
Yeah.
I'm lazy.
Yep.
I don't want to take the time to write out a fucking storyline like that.
Yeah.
Fuck that.
No, thank you.
But I do use big bads, and I do have forces and people and creatures that are making moves in the world, whether or not the players know or do anything about it. And my favorite part about creating these villains is coming up with the stories for them.
Yeah.
So, something like why is Ratatouille, whatever the fucking chef's name, why is he okay with this cranium rat?
Yeah.
Fucking around with it and using his body to do all these evil things. How are the players going to deal with? That's awesome. That's super cool. The same thing with the ones that I was talking about earlier. It's like the lich and the dragon. It's like, how did they get there? Why did they get here? That whole thing started with me with a thought exercise of what makes people evil. What makes people do bad things.
And this is the kind of stuff that you got to ask yourself. I mean, like when we talk about the BBEGs and you're like, what am I going to do? I mean, like think about books you've read, think about movies you've seen, and it literally could be anything. I mean, we just pulled fucking Ratatouille as an evil thing. Like what? Like you watch that movie and that's not evil. That's like, a delightful story of a really perfect smell rat creating some delightful food. Like make it evil, make it bad. What makes things evil? Like that kind of stuff you got to ask yourself when you're making a BBEG and thinking about any movie you enjoy and think, how can I make this evil? What can I do to make this evil?
I'm trying to think. I ran a Disney princess themed Pathfinder
Nice
campaign, or Gabe and I sort of swapped back and forth on it, and I'm trying to remember who I set up as the BBEG for my chunk of it, because it was
Gosh, man, I feel like you told me.
All I can remember at this moment in time is I made Sebastian the Crab like a giant crab evil thing, simply because I wanted to rewrite all of the lyrics to Under the Sea to be about murder.
Delightful.
Yeah. He wasn't the big bad though.
But I mean, like, it's that kind of shit too. You can pull up any Disney and Disney has an evil thing, and mostly it's just killing parents, but like that's pretty evil.
Good. Yeah.
Like what else could be bad? Like what could be evil would be like all like the really drunk people on Bourbon Street in New Orleans. Hey, you want to like smell-o-vision it? Smell-o-vision, 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 smell-o-vision.
They are evil people. Yeah. I hate Bourbon Street so I love New Orleans. I hate Bourbon Street so much.
So let's go there. Let's smellscape this.
Okay. All right. Hit me.
All right. We're going to smell-o-vision, or rather, I'm going to throw some smells at Sean, and they are going to smell-o-vision Bourbon Street. I've been there once. I know you've been there. And I've been there, I don't think the Pride Parade was on Bourbon Street, but I don't remember. But it was delightful. But I was there during the evening because it was like, one of the places to see while you're in New Orleans. And from my experience, it wasn't really crazy. The bars, there was, there's like a fuck ton of bars, so it wasn't like crazy. So here are some notes. Yeah,
but every bar on Bourbon Street is 3 times as expensive as the bar that is 1 block up or down. So
3 times expensive. Very true. So things that I remember from Bourbon Street. It was really hot and humid. And I wore flip-flops, which was a bad idea. And shorts. Also a bad idea. You need to just brave the humidity to get to the central air with pants on and regular shoes. Anyways, so really hot and humid. There is jazz music playing in literally every venue. Booze. Smells a lot like hard liquor. Not beer. Only smelled like hard liquor. And not stale liquor. And food. I smell a bunch of food. You can pick what food. Some sort of fish, maybe. And then, of course, like, as far as ambiance goes, there's always a bunch of drunk people wandering around the streets. When I was there, it was not bad at all. There was not a ton of people there at the time. I think it's because it was like in the middle of summer, so it was really hot and humid.
Oh yeah.
So like
Absolutely the worst time to be in.
Yeah. It was really hot and
Louisiana.
humid, and whenever I walked out of my hotel, I felt like I need to take another shower. But
That's why they got pools everywhere, man.
yeah. So because of that, it wasn't super crowded. Though the bars themselves, like there's plenty of people there, but like the streets were not like a bunch of drunk people. There was a handful of them, certainly plenty, but not like a lot.
Honestly, it's only during during Mardi Gras, St. Patrick's Day, like that's when there are a lot of like it's spring break.
Yeah.
A lot of drunk people on the street. In general, there aren't a lot of drunk people on the street.
It was actually kind of nice.
Even Bourbon Street, although it is still.
I remember I did the flea market around there.
Yeah.
And was able to I bought an Abita beer and was walking around with that, and it was a dang delight, actually.
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah. I'll
be back there this fall.
Those are things nice. Those are the things that I remember of Bourbon Street. It was nighttime when I was there.
Oh wow! Finally, we're not doing early morning.
I'm forcing you into an evening, though it's still warm. Okay. Send me to Bourbon Street, Sean.
Okay. The night is oppressively warm as you walk through the French Quarter. You walk past some old cannons that are sort of just ringing a square. You walk past a museum that used to be an apothecary shop in the French Quarter. And then you turn and you go up the street. And as you do, you hear in the distance, not far, but sort of muted, some jazz music. And then some more jazz music. And it's almost cacophonous because these are different establishments, all of which are playing different jazz music. But somehow, maybe it's just because you are in New Orleans. Maybe it's the humidity boiling your brain a little bit. But it's almost as if they're in conversation. All of these bars with all of this different music and this concert hall and that po' boy place, all of them have the music playing, all different songs, all in conversation with each other. You hear laughing and the sound of a go cup hitting the ground as you sort of walk around the corner onto Bourbon Street, and you see a couple of laughing college-age kids who are just sort of making fun of their friend who has tripped a little bit, probably had a little too much to drink, but it's harmless. And so you walk by, you hit the scent of the Trinity. You've got that celery and onion and pepper smell hitting. There's some spice underneath it too. You get those sort of burning notes in the back of your nose, and you know that somewhere real close by they've got a good old gumbo cooking up, a real spicy gumbo. You can smell the shrimp and probably some breaded catfish cooking alongside it. And with that sort of the knowledge that probably in about 30 minutes there's going to be a real good meal somewhere nearby, you pop into this brilliantly lit bar, and they've got a wall of hard alcohol. And as you step through the door, all of that humidity is blasted from you by the pure cold air of central AC. Oh man, to quote one of the greatest films of all time, no pleasure, no rapture, no exquisite sin greater than central air. That quote lives in my head rent free. Anyway, so you are blasted by this AC as you step in. There's conversation happening all around you. Jazz is playing. You walk up to the bar and it's this clean smell of hard alcohol with the sugars of cane rum as people are mixing up drinks. You know, the person next to you orders some absolutely trashy rum beverage, like I don't know, probably a zombie because why not? Someone else is really mad that they can't get a burning punch bowl, but like really. But you can smell all of that. The liquor smells clean and pure in comparison to the mugginess of outside. But you head up and the bartender pours you a drink, and then as you're sipping this drink and the ambiance of the bar, taking it all in, listening to the music and the sort of shouted yet still muted conversation around you, you look out back toward that restaurant that was cooking up that delicious gumbo, when all of a sudden from that restaurant these strange lobster folk like people start bursting forward, swarming the street. You watch that laughing group of college age kids who were making fun of their friend for dropping the Go cup just get chomped in half. The young man who dropped the cup is screaming and trying to crawl away as his leg is being torn off. The bar erupts into chaos. Roll for initiative.
Oh, God. Did not know where you were going with that one.
I had to figure out some way to kill someone, so.
I love that, though.
All right, what'd I miss?
I don't think you missed
We
anything.
got food.
You got the food. You got the
booze.
clean alcohol. You got the humidity plus the AC. You got the drunk people. I really love the comparison of clean alcohol smell compared to the mugginess of outside. That's such a cool, because it's a very visceral feeling.
Yeah.
It's the exact same feeling of feeling muggy and then walking into AC, but like the mugginess of outside and like the clean alcohol. I could feel that. That was really cool.
Thanks. I hate Bourbon Street. I love New Orleans though. Go to Frenchman Street. It's better. If you're gonna do something like French Quartery and touristy, go there. Don't go to Bourbon Street.
And BBEG can be based out of New Orleans. I mean, there are so much people that own slaves there. But we actually went to a plantation that was really informative. Overall sad time.
Yeah.
But it was very, the words that come to me is very informative. I don't want to say cool.
I know, right? I've tried to explain it to people like, going to visit plantations and stuff like that for an educational, like as a museum trip or something like that. It's like, oh yeah, it's really not cool. It's not cool.
It's desperately not cool, but it's very it's very interesting, informative, and it's just important. And so it was really,
it's a good thing to do.
It was, I felt very fortunate to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And that could easily, if you are able to handle that sort of content in your campaigns, yeah, you can base a whole thing around that. But where else can BBEGs come from?
The bottom of the ocean.
I thought you couldn't see the butt.
BBEGs can come from the butt. That is true. But yeah, I mean, you could sit them in a city like New Orleans.
Yeah.
Like you said, it'd be pretty easy to set a villain based in a historic New Orleans.
Yeah.
Just because
a lot of bad things happen there. Yeah. I think that besides the fact that, where a BBG comes from or can come from or can be based in, like what's the deal with BBEGs? And let's just figure out what the fuck the internet wants. What the fuck does the internet want? So, I found this delightful post on DM's Academy, which is where first place I search is this place, because it's a really awesome place to get advice, and people are asking awesome questions there. But the title of it literally is, "What's the deal with BBEGs?" So let me read this out. Having just begun browsing this subreddit, I've noticed a lot of people advocating against BBEGs and centralized plot. It seems the universal sentiment is that homebrewing with this template in mind is just setting yourself up for failure, and that it is much simpler and more preferable to instead create an episodic sandbox campaign. If this is the case, why are the most popular modules designed with the BBEG format? What an awesome question.
Yeah,
I absolutely love this because it's kind of like where any dungeon master, game master starts, right? At least that's how I imagine when you're trying to create a campaign. You ask yourself, okay, what's the motivation? Why are they here? What made them? What's going to be the thing? Like, why do they need to go to this area? Oh, there's something evil happening, and the adventurers are going to eradicate it. Whether it be, a group of goblins terrorizing a village, or a plague that is overrunning this town, it's some sort of evil thing that is then collected. What? Did I just quote the first part of your campaign? Huh? Did I? It's that kind of stuff. So like, that's where a lot of the modules start. Almost all of them. Yep. But it's not necessarily preferred. Why is it not preferred? And why is it not preferred, do you think?
I actually don't know that it isn't preferred. I mean, I think like it just depends on your table. Yeah. Different groups like different things. There are some groups that want a very linear plot.
They want to be pushed in that direction. They want to be railroaded. There are people in this world that want to be railroaded into a very epic, we're going to go fight a dragon. That's clearly the BBEG. Like, yeah, totally.
I mean, fighting dragons is cool.
Fuck yeah, it is. Dungeons and Dragons, man.
Absolutely. If your players want to go off and explore and do all of the things, great. You run that, but you can have a BBEG in that too. I think, use if a central villain or villains is useful for your story crafting, and for your table's story crafting, if making those types of moves, if that is something that is interesting and that makes play at the table easier, makes the story progression easier, use one. If you're getting hung up on your big villain, then maybe don't. Like, it's just like every other tool that you have as a GM. It should only be used if it is useful in that moment. Like, if it is something that is beneficial to you, use the tool. If having the central big bad is a useful tool for this particular story, great, throw one in. Hell, throw two in. If you're worried about railroading your players, or if you're worried that your players aren't going to like a very linear story thing, grab 3 big bads. They're all doing different things. They're all different, affecting the world.
Because it's not just one evil thing happening in the world. There could be many.
And so come up with 3 of them, 4 of them, 5 of them. I mean, that starts to seem like a lot of work. And again, we're pro not a lot of work here.
Yes, we are.
So you can have those overarching plots for big bads that are happening around the players. And if there are 2 or 3 of them, the players can then choose what direction they go in, or maybe they'll ignore them entirely, and then that can be interesting too, because the world doesn't actually revolve around these players. I mean, it does, because that is the world that you guys are crafting, but things can be happening in the world that don't necessarily immediately affect or show themselves to the players, and then they can deal with the consequences of their ignoring something later.
I think that the reason why it's not necessarily preferred, it's not necessarily that it's not preferred. I think that it's, in my brain, I think it's just easier to build a plot around the players as they're playing it, because there's so much more work involved in writing out a whole story and then keeping them and herding the cats to one location than it is to keep writing as they go. Like I said in many other episodes, I'm always just ahead of my players, and just enough to give them story for maybe like 2 or 3 sessions of time. I have lore. I have shit in the world that I could like barf, but like, as far as the storyline though, like, I tend to create the BBEG as we're going along. That way, when they finally see the BBEG, right, they have far more of a connection to it, at least in my brain. I know that, like, when you're using a module, you're kind of like herd them into an area, like here, let's go here, and here, let's go here. These places are built out and awesome. But you're also trying to make sure that you're not railroading them. But like the whole thing is like a railroaded storyline that could easily go off the rails if you have the right, have those players that do that. So I think that for me, the sandboxy type of campaign is just easier and preferable to me as a game master, not for everybody. I mean, for I guess Sean and I, but maybe you have a lot of fun writing out a whole storyline and thing for a big bad, and that's like your pastime, the thing that you like to do just because it's fun for you, and that's awesome. Do it if that's cool for you to do it. It's not fun for me. It's not. It's cool to ask the question, why is this thing evil? But like that's as I'm going along. And normally the players make them evil, not in the sense of like, you are my problem, I'm blaming all my problems on you, but more like they've created these situations where things become bad, and I like to connect those things to make things evil. But I think that the answer to this question, like, like why are the most popular modules designed with the BBEG format? It's because it's a campaign, it's a storyline. That's the whole point in my brain of like a published thing is here's a storyline you can do. Yeah. Here you go.
Otherwise it's a setting.
It's a setting. It's not an adventure.
Which they put out those as well. Like you can get
separate books.
Eberron.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And read through it, and that's a whole world. I mean, Faerun, which is what 5e's standard world is a setting. And all of the, with the exception of Curse of Strahd, all of the adventures that they've put out so far exist for 5e, exist in the Forgotten Realms in Faerun.
Yeah.
And so the campaign books, if you're looking for just sandboxy stuff and you want to use printed stuff, go grab Eberron. Go grab one of the Theros or whatever and read through that. If you're looking for a storyline, that's when you've got those adventures, like you said. They're mostly linear. They're doing a little bit more sandboxy stuff these days.
Well, it's more along the lines of like, I feel like it's hard to do sandbox because, especially when you're trying to make it out into like a module, into a thing that you then publish and give to somebody, because it's like, here are 3 different options for what they could do. It's like, that's still sort of railroading in a way.
Yeah.
But really, the whole idea is
pick your villain.
It's like, okay, exactly, which is what Waterdeep Adventure, what's it called?
Oh, Dragon Heist?
Yeah, they have like 5 different villains in that one, right? And you can choose the storyline, and then throughout the book, and it's actually very well done as far as like, here's the different things they can go and different paths they can take, and you could change it up, as you're going along. You could, if you can connect them pretty easily, you can totally change it up and make different. You can make them all evil, all bad.
Oh, that's an interesting point as well. Speaking of changing it up, when you can do that if you create a BBEG of your own as well. Like, if you have created a storyline with a BBEG, if you're going in a sort of linear overarching plot, whether, however you're doing that in your campaign, it can shift. You can change things. Remember that, especially when you wrote it, but more importantly, it's your table. You and your players get to decide how things go, so you can make branching paths as well, and also just change your mind midway through something and change it. BBEGs are interesting. I mean, villains are interesting, and I think that's why we get drawn to them. Yeah. Well,
Sean, I think that's it for today, and I think that maybe you can wrap us up.
Wait, there was one more thing I wanted to talk about. About. Where do they live? We sort of talked about that they could come from someplace like New Orleans, but do you put them in a fortress at the end of, do you bury them in the ocean? Bury them in the ocean?
Sure. Yeah.
Are they in the bottom of the ocean? Are they on an orbital platform high above space?
Yes.
And the bit that I love the most about this talking point that you put out is where's the BB? Are they in a castle? Are they in the ocean? Then are they in the player's minds?
Yeah. Yeah, literally, it's 1, castle, question mark, 2, in the ocean, question mark, 3, in the player's minds, question mark.
Right. But I love that because, dear listener, dear darling listener, light of my heart, love of my life, sunshine in my cloud, I don't know. What type of villain lives inside your player's mind?
That's such a cool.
Ooh, deep.
That's so
Ooh,
cool.
spoopy.
That's good. That's spooky. Because that's like, but this is the kind of shit you want to ask yourself. Like, that was just an offhanded thing that my brain was like, in the player's mind. Like, I was like, ew, whatever. And then just kind of glazed over it. But this is the sort of shit that you like want to like think about and ask yourself. Like, in your player's mind, like, what is that? What the fuck would that be?
Right?
What's that?
Is there a villain inside the mind? Yeah. Well, next episode, I guess. But yeah, some sort of niggling thing that just sort of lives in the back of your player's mind. Maybe they know it's there, maybe they don't.
And then over the course of the campaign, it just slowly but surely eats its way out of its brain.
Nom nom nom
Whether
nom
it be
nom 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 nom
like
nom.
actually physically, like something like way long time ago, like implanted in its brain, or it's like a mental thing that like it breaks free and it becomes this kind of like blob of energy.
It's pretty cool.
That's pretty cool.
So never forget, dearest listener, to approach things from multiple angles, to think outside the toolbox, and you'll find things that fire your imagination.
Oh, yeah.
Even if they're not the same things as what fire mine. And that's why we played the game, because it's a game of imagination.
Yeah.
And that's our episode on villains. So we talked about what the fuck a BBEG is. It's a big, bad, evil guy, girl, or gay. And we talked about origins for them. We talked about getting inspiration for them. And we talked about a couple that I've used. We talked about some of the ones that Wizards has created. Well, we talked about one of the ones that Wizards has created. Good old Strahd. We love you, Strahd. And we talked about where they could be, whether that be a physical location or inside the mind of the player. And we statted some Darth Vader, and we smelled Bourbon Street. And that's what we did today.
Yeah.
Go ahead, come on and check us out on the socials. You can add us at the Arcanery on Twitter,
On everywhere.
and everywhere. Instagram, find us, and yeah. So add us. Tell us what you think. Tell us about your villains.
Yeah.
Do you like them? Do you hate them? Do you love to hate them?
Also, we have a Patreon.
We do have a Patreon.
Yeah.
You should find us on Patreon.
So check out our other podcasts that we have. The Arcanery Labs, where you can listen to us fucking talk about world building.
World building.
And specifically build a world.
Our lore podcasts, the Arcanery Labs, and we build a world together a couple times a month.
Yeah. And that's it for this episode of A Game Master's Toolbox. If you found this helpful, please leave us a review, a rating on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcast listening on. Also, check out our website at thearcanery.com, where you can pick up a free 25 NPC PDF, as well as a bunch of other stuff now. And if you leave us a review, you may be turned into an NPC for our future content creations. We're also on YouTube, where you can listen to us at The Arcanery. Thank you so much for listening. Bye.
Bye.